Welcome back to Herb the Nerd and part 2 of this Moneyball series as we look at scouting today. How to set it up, what do we do, how do we run things under a Moneyball umbrella. If you're like, what? I haven't seen part 1 yet. Well, go and watch part 1. It's the introduction to Moneyball and the 5 big rules for running a Moneyball save in Football Manager. But today we're going to concentrate purely on scouting and how I use scouting. Woohoo! If you're enjoying the series so far, please do hit the like button, hit the subscribe and the notification bell so you are made aware when new videos hit the channel. We'll be bringing out another 3 or 4 parts, I think, of this Moneyball style save to answer any of your questions and go through all the different individual sections. And also, we'll be bringing this season reviews as we go through, and we have been going through the 4 seasons of the Moneyball MK save, which is a live Twitch save. Streamed Monday and Wednesdays, so make sure you go over and follow on Twitch as well. If you've got any questions, come and hit me live when we're up. I'm happy to answer any Moneyball questions. I actually quite enjoy this style of save. It's had its ups and downs, but yes, it's been very much enjoyable, so hit us up there. So right now, we're going to get into scouting under a Moneyball system. So before we get into anything in-game, let me go through some of the basic principles of how we run the scouting. So I control everything as the manager for scouting. We do not send our scouts out anywhere. The principle we're running this model through to kind of try and help explain the way I do it and the principle behind the scouting model is to use a funnel. If I have amazing paint skills, I'll probably draw something to go over this video now.
I don't think you have the facilities for that, big man.
To explain how the funnel works. So instead of sending our scouts out to find players, so the top part of the funnel, the wide part of your funnel, instead of sending the scouts out to find the players, we're replacing that with a statistical approach, using data to identify players. So instead of sending my scouts out to as the MK Dons in League One, to go and scout League One, to go and scout the Reserve League, to go and scout the FA Cup, so to go and scout the UK and Ireland in general. Instead of sending scouts out to roam aimlessly and find lots of players who we don't want, we use the data set to find the players we do want them to scout. So they move one section down the funnel. So the funnel we use at the top to capture the most amount of players is by using data. We use the data sets to find the widest section of players we can, and then use our scouts to identify from there the players that we might want to scout fully and have on shortlists. That way we have the widest funnel at the top, the most amount of players to possibly look at, and then we limit the amount of work our scouts are doing to make them more efficient. They are only looking at players we want them to look at. We also, because we have no reserve team and no youth team, we need a very good scouting network and a very good shortlist system to make up for the fact we have no players behind just to pull through. So if one of those rules gets triggered and our player has a bid come in for him and we have to sell them, we need to make sure that behind it we've got the scouts and the shortlist in place. The shortlist in place for the players to know who's going to replace them, who we're going to buy next to fill that hole. Also, because we have no youth academies, we don't have a youth facility, it's expensive to bring up youth players. We routinely scout every year the clubs with the top youth facilities. So we scout the under 18s and under 23s and go through and make sure that we are looking at all those players that come through those top youth academies to understand where the best players lie. If we were to build our own, we'd be competing with these. So why compete when we can just take the ones that don't make it through their systems? We're in League One. If they're Chelsea in the Premier League, we've probably got a few players they're going to release or let go for cheap that will definitely fit for our system that we haven't had to pay a penny for until the point that Chelsea then release them. So we are making the most of that system. There are youth facilities. So scouting their youth facilities is our youth facility. So we do that every single year. And then we also do the same thing looking at players that are coming up for contract renewal. So 6 months due for contracts around December. We'll go and check out who's coming out for contract renewal and also who's on the transfer list at the opening transfer windows. And we'll use a kind of statistical approach to narrow down that search, but also get our scouts looking at those. So to get more into it, we're going to jump into the actual game itself so you can see what I'm talking about and not just chatting rubbish. So here we are in our MK Don save in Season 4, currently in the Scouting Centre. First thing to note, scouting responsibility and assigning scouts and scout meetings is down to me, the manager, Mr. Herb Bean, named after, of course, Billy Bean from the Moneyball film. Makes sense, right? So we have no active assignments because we do not send our scouts anywhere. We have one on next opposition, but the rest of them are just kind of floating around until we decide that they're going to look at people. If we want to know who they're scouting at the moment, go assignments, scout priorities. You can see there's 7 players in the current listing that I've asked the scouts to go and look at. And that is because we're in November and we're looking for some freebies because we're trying to get some people in. Work permits really have screwed me over a little bit. But yeah, you can see we've got a full recruitment team, but they've got no assignments at the moment. So how do we then get these get this funnel working? How do we get the players in? As I said before, we go and scout those big clubs. So we'll go in, pick those and scout. That's easy enough to do. But when we're looking at players within the actual scouting system themselves, there's a few things we do. So one of the first things we do is make sure our recruitment package covers where we're allowed to scout. I would like to go up to Europe. It's a bit more expensive. We currently pay for UK and Ireland. I think when we start, it's much lower down. So we spend our money on the recruitment package. That means we have the biggest data set available that matches our scouting network. We're allowed to scout in the UK and Ireland. We should have a recruitment package that covers the UK and Ireland at least. I would go for Europe more, but again, Brexit on low league English saves really bust your balls. So just be careful on that one. We then use a series of views. At the moment, I'm looking at my Moneyball Scout view. That gives me information based on their age, the recommendation that we have. These guys at the moment haven't been scouted, and I'll go into why. And their current value, release clauses, work permits required. This guy here, he looks really good. But yeah, work permits required, and we'll probably fail to get one, so we won't be able to sign him, which is a shame. Bloody Brexit. So yeah, we have a Moneyball Scout view. That just gives us the basic view on after the scouts have performed their initial review. But what I have done for a statistical approach is you'll see in these 4 menus here is split the teams into sections and therefore split the statistics into sections. So these views I'll make available for download in the descriptions below. But we have specific statistics for the goalkeeping positions. There's not many goalkeeping ones that are in there that we look at. The defensive unit, a supporting unit, and attacking unit. They again blend in with the tactical side and the team selection side, which we'll be going through in a separate video. But they are based on what we want those players to be doing. So regardless of where they play, a defensive unit I'll be looking at the same statistics for those players. Statistics, as you can see here, around mistakes leading to goals, tackles, tackle win ratio, interceptions per 90 minutes. As many as possible, we want to look at the per 90 minute stats because it levels the playing field based on appearances. But just the key things that we want those positions to do. Defensive, I want people to defend. I want them to win the ball. I want them to block the ball, win the ball via headers, whatever it is, and judge them via here. So we have these statistics set up. We have one again for the supporting and attacking units. So this data that will be filled within here is the data from your recruitment package for the current season. So you must remember to, when you're looking at these, do it really in January, because anything before then you're not going to have enough data, and then at the end of the season make sure you do it before the season ticks over and all the data wipes. You can do, and I have seen other people do, very in-depth Moneyball saves where they're dragging data out of the system to compile it in a spreadsheet and run it forward, and that's brilliant. That is so in-depth, but it's probably not sustainable to play the game that way. I've kept as much as I can in the game. There is some stuff I take out, but I keep as much as I can in the game for my own sanity, just so I can keep it there. So yeah, this is how we'll judge players. We also have filters assigned, as I've got in here. Filters assigned for defensive, supporting, and attacking, where I've skimmed down that full listing of KPIs to it, or performance indicators, to a list of KPIs, key performance indicators. Which ones do I really want to look at? So for my defensive filter that I have lined up here, I'm saying I want interceptions per game to be at least 5. Tackles to be at least 2, completion ratio to be 75%, aerial attempts 3, and you must be like, well, how are you setting those levels? Well, I do that based on the average of my actual team. So we'll cover this in more detail in the team selection, but I will go back and briefly show you the team selection screen that enables you to look at essentially setting an average for your team that you use to judge your transfer targets. So I've done that already and come up with these as my metrics. Looking at that now, it's saying that here's a bunch of players that outperform or perform equally to those metrics that you set. So those key KPIs, those benchmarks you've set. So I can go through now and scout these guys. There's not a lot of players there because I'm not sending my scouts out to lots of competitions. I'd have no problem scouting these, whatever it is, 7 players. Obviously, they're going to come back on Matthias. I'd look at Matthias now. So he's 25, 41,000. Contracted to Wither in Switzerland. Looks like, before I even get into scouting him, that he could be quite a good little player. League 1 level player, 6'2". His jumping could be a bit better. Looks like he could be fast. Very solid across his technicals. I'd definitely get him scouted. This could be a guy that is undervalued massively. At 41,000, we could bring him into the English League and turn a tidy profit on him. At 25, falls well within our age range. Perfect. Obviously, when we get the scouting report back, we're likely to see that young Matthias here needs a work permit and would probably fail to get one. Poo. That's not good. So that's how we pull those results and stats from there. You can tweak and edit your filters. Obviously, pick the ones you want, scale them down so you're only looking for certain things. But I have one of these saved for each of the units. If you're looking at how I do it, the squad's view screens that I use as well, which I'll also make available, I have split into defensive, supporting, and attacking. This one is called Moneyball. The other one is called PS for player search. So if I look at defense, here I could look and see my interceptions per 90 minutes for my top ranking players. Obviously, I'd have to look at just defenders. Look at just defenders that say my interceptions. Okay, across my big centre backs, Bjorn for the early part of the season, and Harry's actually been really bad. That is a lot less than the 5 it was before. That actually we're looking probably around 2 to 3 would be the limit I'd set that at. That means that I'm only looking at players that are performing better than my current crop. If they're not performing better than my current crop, why would I buy them? So we've moved through that middle section of the funnel now. We've found a way of scouting players. We're using stats. We're going to use these same stats when we're looking at out of contract players, which you can do all within the filters on contract status. So in December, January time, we're looking at 6 months. We're looking at transfer listed players at the beginning of each transfer window. And then we're looking generally for players just at the midpoints of the season. So during those transfer windows, beginning of season, mid-season and end of season, when there's the most statistical data available. Scouting those players that we think are worthwhile. If there's 7 players there, get them all scouted, because your scouts aren't doing other things. Get that assignment list here. Get it filled up with players. I've had in here like hundreds and hundreds of players, and they work their way through. And without competitions to go to, they work their way through this list incredibly quickly. When you then have the players that you like, so let's just put it back to the scout view. Let's clear some of this stuff. So I'm really only looking for age now, because I'm just looking at generally players that I might be wanting to look at. And where is the one that I hate? Transfer work permit required. That's the one we want. Work permit required. No, thank you. So this is looking at everyone that we've got seen in here. We can then look at the recommendation in our Moneyball scout view, the ability, and then have a look at just the players that we've got coming through and how well they're performing. If we're looking at someone like Ryan Ledson, you can see these guys I've already added them to shortlist, and we think, right, we want to keep an eye on these guys. This is a big one. Claudio Gomez. He looks amazing. Couldn't get him because of a work permit, but I want to keep track of him. Right click. Reports, add to shortlist, which I can't, lists, add to shortlist, and then add him to a shortlist specific to his position. So I run shortlists for centre backs, attacking midfielders, strikers, wing backs, depending on your formation, enough shortlists to cover all of those pots. These pots are essentially, think of them as your reserve team. This is my centre back pot. I don't have a reserve team or a youth team. So this is my list of players that if money came in and I needed a centre back, I would be buying from this list. It is important you set up individual shortlists so it's easy to find players. And secondly, that you tick this button here. Keep scout reports up to date. That means that these players will constantly, your scouts will constantly be keeping an eye on them, seeing how they're getting on, ensuring that if anything happens, bids come in for them, contracts start to run out, they hit the transfer list, that you'll know about it first because they're in your list. So you can react first to those players and what's going on with those players. So that's how we build. That's the bottom part of that filter, is the shortlist. Getting players from the big funnel scouted and onto shortlists. I put them on for a year to start with. Some players have gone on indefinitely because I just love them. So that really rounds out scouting under a Moneyball approach, under a Moneyball philosophy. So we go out, we look at our youth academy, are the big clubs youth academies. We keep scout reports up to date on those, We then use statistics and our benchmark from our current player performance to highlight players within the package. So if we're looking for defenders, we use those key performance indicators for defenders to look for players that fall outside. Then we get the scout report. We do not buy them just based on that. If we get a short list of 7 players, we have to go and scout them fully. If they come back with a good, strong rating, or we believe they've got strong attributes, we go and fully scout them. Analyst and full scout reports, 100% on both. Then they get added to a short list, then they come up to date. It's a very long scouting approach. But because you're not sending your scouts anywhere, you're doing it all manually, they can get it done quite quickly. That way you will have shortlists full of players that mean you can react and you can buy if a bid comes in for your player that you're not expecting. If you need to sell your top goal scorer because he is 29 now and he is going to and he's having a good season, then you need to make sure that you know who you're buying in behind. Ideally, you've got that player playing in your as your sub position, right? You've got a player within your 25, 27 players who's ready to step in, but then you know who your next striker is you want to go and purchase, who's going to improve that team even further. So this way it stops you panic buying, enables you to run an approach of keeping the cost minimum, but while spotting those players. You can also obviously use this for scouting. A big one we've looked at is players in relegated teams. So before the season ends, 2 months maybe before, look at those clubs that are likely to get relegated. Scout their players, scout their teams. If they're going to get relegated, who are the best players within that team? Who might you want to pick up if they do go down? Because they're going to get transfer listed. They're going to go for cheap. We did it with a few players from Bristol Rovers. They got relegated to League 2. We snapped up 2 of their best players for a couple of $100,000. So we dipped into our pot that we'd been building, and hopefully next season they get sold on and we make a lot of money off them. They're our better players in the team now. So it's spotting the opportunity and being ready, but using this approach to scouting to ensure that you make an educated decision on those players. If you have any questions to do with the scouting model, make sure you top them in the comments down below. If you've enjoyed, like and subscribe to the channel to make sure you can follow on the next set of videos. And if you want to catch where we are live at the moment and ask questions live with me in Twitch chat, then go and follow me on the Twitch link down below. I stream this save on Mondays and Wednesdays from about 7:30 p.m. So it's a decent stint we have, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have. By no means do I mean that we are running this perfectly, but we have worked out the best ways of keeping it going and building a rule set around Moneyball. So I'm really happy to come and discuss it with anyone who wants to talk about it. But I will leave that there. Make sure you tune in for the next episode, which will be we'll be going over the topics of transfers, contracts, and then that team selection and tactic view as well. So I will leave it there. If you have enjoyed, like I say, hit all the likes and the subs and all that other stuff. And I'll see you back for the next episode. Have a great day. Bye-bye.